you 14 or 140? "40 years from now, your children and your grandchildren will know with absolute certainty that there's only one reason that their planet was turned into hell. They'll know that it wasn't lack of technology. They'll know that in 2013 you had every bit of the technology you needed to keep their planet from turning into hell forever. They'll know that it wasn't lack of money. They'll know that in fact the only way to preserve the United States economic dominance was to lead, not lag, in the transition to sustainable energy, wind and sun, biomass, biofuels, geothermal. They'll know that it was not lack of money. They'll know that it was not lack of knowledge that Ecocide was unfolding. Do you remember the first Superman movie? The uber advanced Kryptonian people in denial. The science of global warming was first clarified about 120 years ago, the late 18th century. It was presented by the National Institute of Science, the science body that Lincoln created to advise the government. It was presented by them in the 1970s to the president and his staff that the greatest danger to humanity was global warming. And since then, an avalanche of scientific data has amassed to the point that the Einstein of that field, James Hansen, has just resigned, saying there's no need for more science. There's need for radical action. The science has been clear, crystal clear. Your children and grandchildren will know that you had all the scientific data. Your children and grandchildren will know that the only reason that their planet has been turned into hell for them and their children and their grandchildren and their grandchildren's children, the next 1,000 generations, they'll know that the only reason that by the end of this century half the world's species will be in the final stages of extinction. They'll know that the reason that their oceans are dead, that there's only one reason. They'll know that the only reason half of their rivers and lakes are dead, that there's only one reason. They'll know that there are wars all over the planet over food and water forever, that there's only one reason. They'll know that coastline dwelling is no longer an option due to rising seas, 6 feet this century, 40 feet next century, that there's only one reason. They'll know that they're economic slaves for the task of trying to survive Earth. At minimum, 20% of their lifetime earnings going into trying to survive Earth, where you, through 2013, has spent nothing. You've been enjoying Earth, profiting from Earth, living off Earth. They'll be spending a minimum of 20 and probably 30 to 40% of their lifetime earnings trying to survive Earth. They'll know that in 2013 you had all the technology, that you had economic incentive, jobs, and keeping the United States an economic powerhouse. They'll know that you had all the energy, they'll know that you had technology that was virtually at grid parity with the scam cost of fossil fuels in 2013, wind and solar. They'll know that the only reason that their planet has been turned from a Garden of Eden into hell irreversibly. They'll know that the only reason is that you were not one of 1,000 people that loved their future. That loved creation, that loved the next 200 billion children. Enough to joyfully die 1 million deaths, joyfully. To joyfully suffer 1 million starvations, 1 million institutionalizations, 1 million years in prison. They'll know that that was the only reason. If there were 1,000 people on Earth that would joyfully suffer that to provide a future for the next 200 billion children, we'd stop this in a heartbeat. For God's sakes, watch the video. It's the first tab on the Start Loving blog. Google will Start Loving. Averting Ecocide, Dr. James Hansen. It's dry as hell, and it's the most succinct picture of the science that exists. Terribly, horribly. It's immensely dry. Watch it. But we're not going to avert it because there are not 1,000 people on Earth that love humanity more than they love their own pleasures. And that's the only thing that will be remembered about you. That's the only thing that will be remembered about you. is that you let this happen. For your own pleasures, your own comfort. No, you won't have any excuses. They won't give you any excuses. It'll be too clear. The historical record will be too clear. You will be the most hated, reviled people in the history of humanity forever. You in 2013 will be the people that let Earth die needlessly.